Hey everybody, it's Bronco from Apex Vaulting. In today's video, I want to talk about how at Apex, we never do our full approach. We never go on our competition poles in practice, and why you shouldn't either. Well, as I started coaching in my early days, like most people, I always try to do a full approach practice before the first meet. Actually, as I started coaching a couple years into it, we would do it for the first couple weeks leading into a big meet and try to kind of figure out the poles and grips. Well, this started to create certain issues. We started having athletes run through sometimes. Then in competition, when we tried, let's say an athlete actually blew through the biggest pole in practice, they would then kind of balk on going on a bigger pole in the meet. And I started to see that this was kind of an issue. Like maybe we're not doing it the right way. Something's wrong. Maybe we shouldn't be doing these full approaches. Maybe we shouldn't be pushing pole and grip in practice. And as I continued to coach and I started to, look at what some other coaches were doing. And at this time, I'd already worked with some vault coaches, made visits and worked with different vault coaches. But now I'm starting to expand my knowledge and go into the strength and conditioning world. And I eventually came across the now late Louis Simmons, the great coach from Westside Barbell, who created the conjugate method for powerlifting. And not just powerlifting, I mean, they worked with athletes of all different sports. But for those of you that don't know, powerlifting, you squat, bench, and deadlift at a meet. You have 3 attempts for all of those lifts. And then they add your total, and whoever has the biggest total wins the meet. Just for easy math, let's say you benched 100 pounds, squatted 100, you deadlifted 100, you have 300-pound total, okay? And then you see where you stack up against everybody else. And again, you have 3 attempts, and let's say you start your bench at 100 pounds, you can only go up in weight, you can't go down, okay? So if you fail your first attempt, then obviously you're probably gonna fail your next 2 attempts because you can only keep the weight the same or go up. Now, here's something interesting that Louis Simmons did, okay? And I am far from trying to explain conjugate. It's a very complex system. But Louis Simmons, his powerlifters, never did competition bench, squat, or deadlift in training. Never. They did variations of it, and they would do different rep ranges, different bar speeds, right? They would alter different stuff depending on what the athlete needed, but they never did their competition bench, squat, or deadlift in training. And one of the things that Louis wrote about and talked about was that that gave his athletes a psychological edge. Let me explain. Let's say they did do a competition deadlift in training. And, let's say the said athlete, every time they tried to deadlift more than 700 pounds, they failed. On top of it, worse, maybe it created injuries. Now, fast forward, we're at a competition, and let's say the athlete just deadlifted 695, and the bar speed was super fast. It looked super easy. Athlete could easily go up 10, 20 pounds, which would be a new PR, over 700 pounds. The problem is, the athlete has the psychological issue. They have memories of no, whenever I try over 700 pounds, I get hurt, I fail. Messes them up. But because instead, they stayed away from the competition lifts. They did variations that helped address weaknesses, and they're only going up weight. They're not failing in training. They're doing successful lifts. They're hitting their rep ranges. They have good bar speed. They have good form. Well, now, they don't even know what their PR is before they go to the meet. They just go to the meet. They have a starting weight that they know they can hit, and then they go off a field. Wow, that was, okay, let's go up 10 pounds. Oh, wow, let's go up 20 pounds, so on and so forth. Well, now let's talk about pole vault. If you never do your full approach, One, first of all, we're not taxing the CNS system and frying you, right? Because I've had plenty of videos where people are not following the 72-hour rest rule for full approach vault. But you're not going to have danger of that, especially when you have a meet a week. You won't have to worry about frying your CNS. But when you're staying away from your competition run, you're staying away from your competition grip, you're staying away from your competition pull, and you're doing all these drill variations that are addressing technical weaknesses, and you always have good pull speed. You're always landing deep in the pit. And then in training, whenever you do go up a grip or pull, again, because you're only going up grip and pull when there is lots of pull speed, you're landing deep, and it's appropriate to go up grip and pull, your feedback loop mentally, psychologically is, oh, I go up grip when I feel this pull speed. I go up pull when the pull bends this much and I land this deep. You're building this feedback loop of this is just what I do. The number is secondary. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm 2, 3, 4, 5 lefts. I go up a pull or grip when I land this deep and the pull speed is this fast or the pull bend is this much. And you don't even know your limits. And again, I'm going to give you a little bit of extreme example, but last year, in training, one of my high school boys, his highest grip was 13 in training from 5 lefts. His biggest pull was a 14-160. In meets, he did as much as a 7 left, so we increased the approach 2 lefts, and he gripped as high as 14-3, so a foot and 3 inches higher, and he jumped on a 15-170, which is the equivalent of a 14-190, so we're talking about 30 pounds of stiffness at the meets. To give you a female example, one of my high school seniors last year who jumped 12, biggest pull she jumped on in practice was maybe a 13-40, gripping 11-6, 11-9. In competition, she gripped 12-3, and she jumped on a 13-65. And this is what helps us at Apex avoid run-through issues, because people are always landing successfully into the pit. We're not pushing them to failure at practice. So that's not the expectation when they take a jump. And then at meets, it's very easy to go up grip and pull because we go up grip and pull at practice successfully all the time. We only go up when appropriate. And so when they go to the meet, they're not even sure. They don't know. They're like, look, I know what my biggest pull and grip is from one of these like medium to short approaches. So I know we'll start maybe up a grip or 2, up a pull or 2 when we go back to a 6 or a 7 or an 8. And then we see where the meet takes us. Again, I'm very thankful for Louis Simmons and Westside Barbell. There's a lot of takeaways. Like if you're a pole vault coach, I get it. You might not be into lifting. You might not know a lot about strength and conditioning, but you want to learn how to coach, you should look up Louis Simmons and Westside Barbell. There's a lot of lessons to be learned because just like the vault, let me tell you, the powerlifting world, especially before Louis developed his system, full of people that would max out at practice. People with the week of a powerlifting meet max out their deadlift, squat, and bench, and then go into the meet usually injured or at least frying their central nervous system, and they would literally lift less at the meet than they did in practice. And how many of you out there are going to pole vault meets and jumping lower at meets than you do at practice? Maybe you need to stop doing full approach at practice. Maybe you need to stop trying to get on bigger pulls and grips in practice. Maybe you should take a note from Louis Simmons and Westside Barbell. Have a good week.